Good morning, everybody. My name is Oluwatosin Esther Ashalu. Today, I would like to speak on poverty in the UK. The purpose of the presentation is to explore and definition and measure the poverty in the UK, and also evaluate how poverty has changed over time. More so to also analyze the method which poverty has been measured in the UK. First is absolute poverty. Absolute poverty is simply explain the condition whereby individual lack basic necessities required for survival, such as food, clean water, shelter, and health care. Shown in a study process that it is a fixed measure, often applied universally, that remain constantly regardless of time or location. People living in absolute poverty are unable to meet their most basic needs, and this condition can lead to poor health, malnutrition, and death if unaddressed. Relative poverty. Relative poverty, on the other hand, is said relative poverty on the other hand is measured of an individual or household income in relation to average income given in a society. This form of poverty is dynamic and varies depending on societal standard and economic condition. In UK, relative poverty is typically defined as having income that is less than 60% of national income of national media income. This key feature of relative poverty is comparative in nature. However, we have ways at which poverty has changed in the UK. During early 20th century, poverty was largely concentrated in urban area, particularly among industrial workers and their family. This social condition of this period were so harsh, with overcrowded housing, poor sanitation, and limited access to health care. This rise of industrialization in 19th century has brought about rapid urbanization, but it also exacerbated social inequalities, leading to widespread of poverty among working class. However, the introduction of early welfare reforms such as National Insurance Act of 1911 marked the beginning of state intervention in poverty alleviation, providing some form of social securities to the worker. The process of industrialization, which began in 18th century and continued in 20th century, profound impact on poverty in Britain. However, it also led to significant social dislocation, with many rural population moving to city to search for work. This migration often resulted in living poor condition as urban infrastructure struggled to cope with influence of new residents. Industrialization, this contributes to growth of poverty, including the reform of slum and poor working conditions in the factory. The introduction of welfare reform in early 20th centuries, particularly after World War, marked the turning point to fight against poverty in Britain. The Bridge Report of 1942 was a key document that outlined the need for a comprehensive welfare state to address root cause of poverty. The implementation of this welfare state after the war included the creation of the NHS and expansion of social security benefits, significantly reduced the absolute poverty and improve living standard of majority of the population. However, let's discuss about how poverty has been measured so far in UK. We have 4 means at which poverty has been measured. The first one is income-based measure. Income-based measure typically define poverty using either relative or absolute threshold. This relative threshold concerns individual poor if their income is significantly low, more than the median income of the society in which they live. In contrast, absolute poverty threshold set a fixed living income below which individuals are considered to be poor in, based on the cost of basic needs like food, housing, and clothing. In UK, relative threshold is more commonly used because it reflects change in living standard over the time and takes account into societal expectation. Multi-dimensional poverty index. This multi-dimensional poverty index look into poverty across various dimensions, including access to basic service, housing, social participation. In the UK context, multi-dimensional poverty index could be used to assess poverty by looking at factors such as health income, educational attainment, poverty status, employment status, and access to essential service. This approach recognizes that poverty is not only having insufficient income, but also about the inability to achieve a minimum standard of living due to deprivation in multiple areas of life. Living standard approach. Living standard approach measure poverty based on individual living condition rather than solely on income. This approach assesses access to based on goods and services such as housing, healthcare, education, and social participation. It recognizes that people were being depend not only on income but also on the quality of their living environment and services they can access. This living standard approach focus on whether people have access to essential goods and services. Social exclusion measure. See social exclusion as another method of measuring poverty using individual ability to participate fully in the society. This approach go beyond income and look into the extent to which people are excluded from social, economic, and political opportunity. Poverty is not seen just as lack of resources, but also inability to participate in key aspects of life. Conclusively, this analysis has explored different methods of measuring poverty, including income-based measure, multidimensional living standard, social exclusion measure. Each method offers unique insight in the nature of poverty in the UK. Income-based measure, though widely used, provide a limited view of poverty by focusing solely on financial resources, while MPI and living standard approach broaden their perspective into cooperative factors such as health, education, and access. Social exclusion measure emphasize the role of social participation and effect of the deprivation. Recognizing the complexity of poverty is crucial in understanding the facet nature in UK. Poverty is not merely about low income, but also inadequate living standard. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much. I am Esther Oluwatosin Ashalo. Thank you.